What's up guys, this is SOS and today I'm gonna be reviewing the First Berserker Khazan for PC.
Now when it comes to Khazan, this takes place in the DNF game universe, that is the Dungeon and Fighter, which is a less known IP here in the West, as this is being produced by Nexon, who is a South Korean company which has always kind of focused more on domestic and Asian markets. And this game series has been historically known from beat 'em up games and fighting games, so this is the first time that Nexon is basically doing entry on the Souls genre. And it also needs to be said that this is a standalone game and you do not need to play any of the other DNF games in order to get started with Khazan. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay. So Khazan plays a lot like the other Souls games, as it is expected, but there are definitely different game design choices that make the gameplay loop slightly different from your average Souls experience, whatever it's from software titles or something else. For example, Khazan is limited to 3 different weapon types. You have dual wield, which is kind of best of both worlds. Then you have two-handed sword, which is very slow weapon. And then you have the spear, which is very, very fast. And each of these 3 weapon types have their own skill tree. Throughout the skill tree, you can unlock abilities, which use spirit to use. You can also unlock more combos to your basic attacks. You can learn charged attacks, and then there's a lot of different passive attacks and abilities which will increase your stamina when you're blocking or dodging. So you have these kind of like different elements that you basically will be unlocking throughout this skill tree. There's different types of mechanisms in terms of blocking and counter attacks, which are kind of unique to Khazan in this game. And the blocking is a lot less like forgiving in this tile than it is in a lot of others, as in some games when you just block, you're like losing all your stamina and you basically get wiped out in a second. But here, like, blocking is very, very efficient and it can be done right. And there's like doing the block at the exact time will not have any negative penalties, for example. Then, top of the 3 weapons you're going to be unlocking, you also have the Javelin, which is this throwable spear, which can be basically used with Spirit. And this is kind of like a way to deal with ranged opponents and other enemies. There's no any type of bow or other type of ranged abilities really in the game outside from the Javelin. Khazan will also unlock this phantom form in the game, which basically allows him to transform into this blood thing, and he's, you know, kind of like immortal for a short period of time, and he will have his own combos and abilities in this form, which you can also learn from the skill tree. And this is though kind of like an ability which you kind of reserve for elite enemies and boss fights though, so you're will be not using it, or you really can't use it all the time inside the game, obviously. And another thing that I absolutely love about Khazan is their approach into loot design. So whenever you're going to be getting weapons or armors inside the game, you can either sell them for a vendor for gold, or you can turn them into lacrima, which is the resource that you're going to be using to level up your character's base stats, or you can basically use same item type to basically disenchant them to improve the stats on your current existing items, or on your 4th option, you can also turn them into crafting parts, which allows you to basically build item sets. And this basically makes the grinding feel very rewarding, as there are so many different ways to basically progress throughout the game, and you won't be stuck on that specific hard boss that you keep dying on over and over again. And this is something of a design that I would really love to see in other Souls games in the future. The item system is also pretty good, as there's many different item sets that will give you bonuses, like maybe it will improve the abilities when you're going to be using the dual wield or something like that, or better dodge rate, or give you even secret abilities. And this is a very good system, as all the sets that you're going to be getting throughout the game can be actually improved and leveled up. So the first sets that you're going to be seeing in the beginning of the game can be actually viable in the very late game as well. And all the outfits look very visually nice, so Khazan kind of stays fashionable throughout the game. Now, Khazan is not an open world game. The zones are locked into these main missions, and then there are side missions, which are usually the same map as the main mission, but the map is played in reverse, or maybe they're usually colored in a bit different way. Let's say the side mission might take place during a night, while the main mission was on daylight, and then they have maybe juggled around a bit of the enemies also differently on the side mission as the main mission. And there is also some variety in terms of level design. We have castles, we have dungeons, The game starts on the snowy mountains, but I have to add that there's definitely some design fatigue in the game. Like, some of the locations look way too similar to each other, and sometimes certain enemies are, you know, becoming too recurring, and things are not really changed that much. I wish perhaps there could have been more jungle zones or something that would have been artistically just different looking. And also when you get into the latter part of the game, as there's no map or compass in the game, it's like in the very last zones there's going to be a lot of labyrinth style levels, and you kind of have to remember every single part of the map and where's this enemy and where's this elevator and this secret route and all that. It kind of gets a bit messy towards the end especially, but definitely could have used a bit more like more different looking level designs. And I also felt like maybe at times like certain locations look way too dark, so I had to add up the brightness up. Now, Khazan is a very long game. It's approximately 37 hours for the main story. But if you do all the side quests, it can take around plus 50 hours. For me, it was 54 hours. I basically did every single side mission throughout my playthrough. And I do want to add that in some cases, you are kind of forced to do those side quests, as the game difficulty can be pretty steep on certain bosses, so you definitely want to do the side quests as you're gonna be up on the levels and up on the items to basically deal with the challenges, unless you're like a very naturally gifted Souls player. Overall, I feel that Khazan does so many much needed game design choices in this Souls genre. And it's like slightly more casual game, especially when it comes to blocking, which is very forgivable. But it still remains to be a very hardcore game. You're going to be still losing all your lacrima if you don't recover them. And there's all of those same, you know, difficulty things that you're going to be seeing other Souls games. There are like definitely more streamlined, casual-friendly elements here. And one of the bad design game just in terms of gameplay, I do have to add that you're not able to change your difficulty as you start throughout the game. I played it on the most easiest one, and I have to say that even that was kind of difficult at times in certain bosses, like maybe not so much in the actual map itself, but the bosses were definitely giving me a bit of hard time at times. So definitely, like, even if you choose the lowest difficulty, it's definitely going to give you hard time. Now let's briefly talk about audio and music design. So when it comes to Nexon, and really South Korea as a whole, it's a hub for great music and composers. I mean, exactly 1 year ago, Stellar Blade was released, which probably had one of the best gaming soundtracks that I've heard in a very long time. It was an amazing soundtrack. And holy shit, Khazan couldn't be far away from this quality. I mean, this is totally forgettable soundtrack. There's not a single track worth mentioning, and the only thing that is really even remotely memorable is really the main menu theme, because you're going to be entering the main menu so many times as you boot up the game. Now, while the OST is lacking, I do think that there was actually fairly decent voice acting in the game, which you're going to be mostly hearing in the 2D cutscenes and some of these 3D dialogue events between the characters. Not everything inside the game is, by the way, voiced, so when you're going to be talking to the NPCs, they might be throwing a one word, but it's all going to be text in that. And I do want to say that they did do actually a good job selecting the English dub. I didn't delve into the other versions of dub. I do believe that there's one for Korea, as it was done by Nexon, but I didn't try out and see whether it's good quality or not.
By the Emperor. From the moment he sent us to the borders.
So let's finally talk about the story, which is going to be riddled with a lot of heavy spoilers, so in case you don't want to know them, skip to the last segment of this video. Now, it kind of goes without saying that people will not buy Khazan for the story, which is definitely the weakest part about this game. And to be fair, Souls games are not really known for their great storytelling, exceptions being like Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong, which did okay job, but usually not great. Now, the premise of the game kind of revolves around Khazan, who is this warrior general, a hero, who just saved the kingdom by defeating this giant dragon with his best friend, known as Ozma. And now the king has basically decided that, hey, you guys are traitors now, and we're gonna execute you. And Khazan is basically in the beginning of the story being, you know, thrown into some execution camp or something like that. But then there's an avalanche happening in the snowy mountains, and this blood phantom basically is searching for Khazan and tries to overtake Khazan's body and control it, but instead Khazan is kind of like fighting, and instead of becoming the master of the phantom, and kind of like manages to enslave it. And that's kind of like the premise of the story, and now he's going for this giant revenge tour 2025 to basically kill these people and basically try to betray him like the king and all that. And in this story, there's going to be a lot of side characters, which are going to be introduced throughout the story, which are like members of his army. And then they're like later on killed on the main story without like having any like real character development. So the characters are totally filler because most of them are going to be dying. And there's going to be very few characters, which are like more like merchants, and they're not really part about the story. They're just merchants there selling you stuff. They don't really have a bigger story to tell or anything. But all the characters that are interacting with these side missions and main stories basically just end up dying. Like, everybody ends up dying in the end. Like, that's really what's happening here. And ironically, the whole beginning cinematic, once you log into the game first time, or launch the game first time, practically reveals everything about the story. Khazan and Ozma being betrayed by the king, Ozma is being corrupted by the chaos, and wants to kill humanity and have his, you know, I guess, revenge on humanity. And Khazan basically has to stop his former friend with the aid of the Phantom. Like, that's literally the whole story. And we're talking about like 36 of gameplay, multiple missions. And the game, about the story, everything about the story is extremely predictable. There is no character development. The world is not really interesting or anything. There's nothing really that makes you very drawn into it, or once you research the lore, it's like super standard stuff. And the story is just fundamentally very underwhelming in terms of development, progression, and there's a lot of filler stuff here. Stuff that really didn't really play into anything, bosses and side routes where the character goes, which are for gameplay reasons, I guess, but like, it kind of needs to be said that, yeah, there's a lot of extra filling there which didn't need to be there story-wise, which probably were added just for adding up those gameplay hours. So here's my final verdict. I think Khazan is a pretty excellent Souls game. In terms of gameplay especially, they do the right innovations, the loot system is great, the combat feels smooth and fluid, it's not unclunky and slow like in some of these older Souls titles. I feel like there's a lot more of this dynamic action combat type of a feel with the combos and the fast movement here that definitely some people are going to be appreciating more. And it doesn't really have major glitches and bugs. It only crashed on me one single time, which could have been a computer-related issue. So in case you're gonna be a big fan of the Souls genre, I don't see why you shouldn't pick this game up, especially if you're gonna be getting it on discount on places like Gamivo. Now the game does obviously have some lacking things, especially when it comes to the music and the story department. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I feel like, yeah, the game could have been 15 to 10 hours shorter. There were main missions and side missions which really didn't have any impact on the story if they were removed by now. Like, they just made the game bloat and make it overly long, which it didn't really need to be. And I feel like, especially in the third and the fourth part of the game, they really didn't introduce any new gameplay elements. Like the first 20 hours, they are giving you like new skill tree things, new merchants on the base, and I feel like that sense of progression in terms of new elements and fresh elements on the third and the fourth segments of this game are not there. It's just like the same old repeat, just with bigger maps and just like more enemies, but they are basically the same. So I definitely think that this is like my top 5 Souls games that I have played. It has its flaws, but the gameplay is just so well done, honestly, here. And even, yeah, they maybe could have added like an extra weapon here or something like that, but I feel like there's some replayability value here with the New Game Plus, and yeah, maybe there could have been some stages which could have been a bit more artistically different from the other maps, and there could have been a bit more variety here, but hey, it is what it is, and I liked my experience even though it was a bit long. Thanks for watching. I will be seeing you in the next video when it will be dropping out. Until then, see you soon.